Welcome to Work Inspired. This podcast is powered by BOS, one of the country's largest commercial interiors companies. I'm your host, George Lucas Pfeiffer, and on today's episode, we've got an incredibly special guest. Holly May is the EVP and Global Chief Human Resources Officer for Walgreens Boots Alliance. I'm so excited to talk to her today about workplace culture, total employee well-being, and post-pandemic working. Let's not wait another minute. Work Inspired starts right now. Holly, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. So excited to speak with you. Been really looking forward to this conversation, and can't thank you enough for lending us some of your insight and your time.
Happy to be here and great to meet you.
Great to meet you too. In fact, I was hoping that we could start by you just kind of giving an overview of your professional experience and talk a little bit about how you got to where you're at today and what you're doing in your current role.
Sure. It's quite a story. I'd have to say that a career in HR is not where I expected to be. I've spent almost the entirety of my career in human resources, but if you had told me that when I was in college, I probably would have laughed. After undergraduate, and I attended Wellesley College, so a liberal arts school, where I actually concentrated in classics and art history, funny enough. Wow. Had no idea what I wanted to do from a career perspective. But I knew what I loved studying, and that's what led to my major and my minor in school. So not knowing what I wanted to do, I made the decision to go into business school right after undergraduate, almost immediately following, where I concentrated in finance, at which point I thought I knew all the answers. I thought I wanted to be a portfolio manager and work for an asset manager or investment bank. And that's what led me to ING, which is where my first job was. And by chance, someone in the HR department, actually the head of Total Rewards, got a hold of my resume. And his background was actually very similar to mine. And he called me in when I arrived for interviews and asked me if I'd have an interest. I actually told him no. And then let me know that, if I would just try it out, and by try it out, start in the executive compensation space and do an entry-level role there, I'd get that opportunity if I still wanted it in a few months, if it wasn't for me, to get the role I had come to interview for. So I agreed a bit unwillingly, but after a few months, I was hooked. I started my career in the total rewards space. I've actually spent the majority of my career in that space, but I knew that HR was where I wanted to stay. So I've actually relocated 7 times for work, quite a few. I spent 3 years of my career in the Netherlands, actually in Amsterdam, working for a Dutch bank, actually ING Group. I went there on an expat assignment. I moved back to the US after the financial crisis, which I weathered there, when the decision was made to spin off the U.S. subsidiary, which then became Voya Financial. So I was there for the IPO. Following that, I made my way to the West Coast, worked for Visa, and which was followed by my time at Starbucks, which I was the global total rewards leader there and the head of service delivery. It's actually where I met my current boss, Roz Brewer. Then made my way to Ohio, where I was the CHRO of Abercrombie and Fitch, and then made my way here. So my current role is I'm the Global Chief Human Resources Officer for Walgreens Boots Alliance, responsible for all things HR, as well as diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as our other ESG efforts, such as community giving and environmental sustainability.
Wow. What a story. Congratulations on that path. I mean, amazing. And Walgreens Boots Alliance has how many employees?
350,000.
Wow.
Currently.
So a huge team.
Approximately.
And obviously more so than ever before, coming out of the pandemic and throughout the pandemic, people leadership has been in the forefront of the working world. And I think, I mean, we're in facilities. We've never been working closer with people leaders than we are today.
Right.
And so that's why I've been so excited about this, is that perspective that you have, not just at Wellbeing's Boots Alliance, but also throughout your career at all these great businesses that you've been a part of. Very, very cool. One thing we like to talk about a lot, especially with people in your position, is workplace culture. Tell me a little bit about the culture at your organization.
Well, I would say we have a culture that cares. We're an organization with a very long history. Obviously, if you've seen our locations and stores around the US, and we're a company that's always believed in caring for our customers, our patients, and our communities. So we have a very proud, long history. And, I think from a culture perspective, people always want to work for a great company with great leaders, and we have both. And, I would also say we're an organization that's in the midst of transformation. Back in October, we actually introduced our new purpose, our new vision, and new values as an organization, just a few months after Roz Brewer joined the organization as our CEO. And our purpose is more joyful lives through better health. And, our vision here is to be the leading partner in reimagining local healthcare and well-being for all. And I think it's important to note that, because that's what we stand for as an organization. And it's also how we operate and how we treat our team members as an organization, and the culture that we create for them. I think we're at an exciting point in our company's history. Really, our value proposition for our team members is that we care for them as whole people, and we value their health and well-being in terms of both the physical and the mental, and we embrace who they are as authentic individuals, and that's what we stand for. We've built upon our strong culture of the past, and we're moving it forward, recognizing the environment around us and the world around us.
And I'm excited to unpack some of that well-being and how you address that. But regarding the culture, with such a large organization and so many team members in so many different locations, you mentioned kind of the local aspect of it. Walgreens Boots Alliance, there's a community aspect to that on a local level. And also, when you talk about caring, that's something that, it has to be personal, right? It has to be individual. How do you kind of maintain that at such a macro level, but narrow it down to a personal level and make it something that actually resonates with each individual on your team?
You have to do that through leadership. I mean, it's the relationship between people managers and the individuals on their teams that, to me, is most critically important. As HR leadership, we can create the programs and the policies to enable things, but it's really that one-to-one relationship, with people on your team, with your people leader that's leading the charge, that really makes all the difference. And to me, that's when authenticity comes into place, and inclusion. That's where it comes into play as well, because you have to, as a leader, be creating an environment where people can bring their whole selves to work, especially right now, especially with all that's going on in the world, the economic uncertainty, inflation, the war in the Ukraine, the rise in extremism. I think all of these things, people are looking to organizations and to people leaders in a different way than they ever have before. And that's why building trust within a culture, within a business community, is really becoming more important, because individuals are relying on the places that they work for many things now that perhaps pre-COVID it wasn't the case. And I think people need to feel safe at work. People need to feel that they're supported, and people need to feel that they can bring their full selves to work, free of judgment, a place where they feel included, and a place where they feel like they belong to a community.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it's interesting, the safety aspect is throughout the pandemic, it was very much about being safe from a pathogen or germs or, physical distancing from one another. And now that conversation is shifting into feeling included, right? Feeling like you're
Mm-hmm.
part of a team that cares about you. You're absolutely right. It's a transformation, like you said, that's going on.
Right.
And I wonder how much of it is uh, contributing to some of this great resignation or the problem that we're having with attracting talent or hiring or retaining people. Are you seeing any sort of impact within your culture, especially given your experience at other organizations? Are you seeing the strong culture that you've got at Walgreens Boots Alliance kind of contributing to your ability to attract and retain?
I think, absolutely. What we are experiencing here at WBA is similar to what so many organizations are experiencing. And to be clear, we have a diverse set of team members. We
Mm-hmm.
have team members that have been out in our stores and in our distribution centers, caring for our customers and our patients since day one of the pandemic, and they were there throughout, which I know the communities in which they work are so appreciative for. We have team members who are here in where I am today in Deerfield in our support centers throughout the U.S. And their experience has been very different. So, like many organizations, retention and talent attraction is top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, similar to other organizations, we have to recognize the world's changed.
Mm-hmm.
The post-COVID world is different from the world before, and we have to adapt. And what's most important with that is we have to listen to our people. We have to listen to our team members, because there isn't a one size fits all solution that every CHRO can go and pick up off a shelf and say, okay, this is going to work. You have to understand the specific needs of your people, and there could be regional differences, there could be industry differences. Everybody's experience and how they experience your work environment is very different. And in doing so, you have to understand what they need. You have to reevaluate your employee value proposition. And what are the people who are the people we're looking for? Ensuring their values align with our own, and they should be doing the same thing when considering job opportunities with us, and making sure we're offering the right programs, we're offering the right benefits that meet their needs, not what we think they need, but after listening, understanding what they need. And that goes to flexibility, that goes to everything, the whole person, not just what happens when they enter the door of one of our stores, distribution centers, or offices, and when they leave at the end of the day, but really understand what they need personally and how they're experiencing our work environment.
Exactly. And you, like you said, it's changed. And one way that it's changed is that you have to listen and communicate, and you have to do that more frequently, it seems, than you've ever had to before, because of how quickly everything changes, right? So it's a faster process than it was before, but you're right. I mean, everybody that we talk to that is in that seems to be navigating this amount of change successfully is doing it in a transparent way. And they're doing a lot of asking, a lot of listening, and a lot of flexible, agile implementation, right? So,
absolutely.
Talk to me about the office worker. Each company kind of calls them something different, but those that aren't necessarily essential and that don't have to be in the pharmacies and in the stores. What is the current way of working that you've got at WBA, and is that different? I'm guessing so than it was back in 2019.
Yes, it absolutely is. We actually welcomed our team members back into our support offices in April of this year, so just a few short months ago. And we did so in a hybrid format. And I know hybrid means a lot of different things depending on what company you ask, but it was really a leader-led hybrid model, where even before announcing the timing of our return, we went to our people leaders and we said, let's look at all of the roles that currently are sitting in our support offices And let's determine whether those roles need to be performed in person. And for those that could be performed remotely, that gives us opportunity in terms of talent availability, in terms of hiring diverse talent that may be more accessible in different parts of the country. It also offers, flexibility. But for those roles that were determined to not be able to be performed fully remote, we established this hybrid work environment. Not certain days or number of days you actually had to be in our building, but a leader-led decision about these moments that matter. So whether it be town halls, team meetings, times when it makes the most sense to come together as a team, not only for the work that needs to be done, but also, how do you connect for career growth, to better know your team members and your peers? But what are those moments that the leader will be creating and building where it makes sense? Our view here at WBA is that community is critical, but community is not only created just in an in-person way. It can also be created virtually. Obviously, our company doesn't exist in one location, in one office, so we all can't be together all of the time at the same time. So we've been looking at ways to, how do we build community virtually? So wherever someone is in the country or internationally, how can they connect to who we are? So one of the things that we've introduced since April is I actually have started a podcast. It's Click Twice for Connection. That's what it's called. And the concept is recreating hallway conversation through a podcast. So not, asking our CFO about the latest earnings results, but, talking to him about, where did he grow up? What was his life like when he was in university? I actually asked him on a recent podcast how he makes the perfect salad, because he's been on a wonderful wellness journey and he has the secret to the perfect salad. So all of the things that you might learn about a person, if you were just walking down the hall and getting to know them, you could also get to know our leaders better through this podcast. We've also established kind of our internal social media platform, W Connect. So think about it similar to Facebook, or ways of our internal team members to connect with each other, to get news about the organization, to hear from each other, to comment on things that are going on. So we're looking for, new ways, creative ways to create that connection regardless of where people are located. But the priority in all this, really the driving principle, is that we are prioritizing community, but recognizing that it takes a variety of different forms.
It's awesome. I love that you said training and development, or career progression, and then also the relationship building. And those are two things that the examples you just gave are ways that you're doing that on the podcast. And I think most companies have realized that it probably doesn't make sense to say we're only remote or we're only in person. And that's why we believe this concept of the hybrid work is going to stay around. But what I like that your approach is that you're not saying focus work at home, collaboration in the office, or community in one. You're not saying this type of work in this space. You're saying we think we need to foster that environment and give that choice and have different types of ways of working, regardless of where the work is happening. So that's very cool. How's it being received? I know you're 2 months in after 2 years out, but how has it been so far?
We are constantly measuring the success of this. We were very transparent with our team members. And I haven't mentioned this, we call our employees team members. You might have picked up on that so far. But we were very transparent up front and said, look, we don't expect to get this right on the first day or the first week or even maybe the first month. We're going to listen, we're going to adapt, we're going to learn from all of you, and we're going to adjust as necessary. So we never promised perfection. We knew that there were some things that would likely need to be tweaked. And we introduced an always on survey. So we actually put QR codes throughout the buildings. We posted on our intranet site. We made it accessible for individuals at any time during the day, multiple times during the day if they'd like, to access an always on survey to let us know how they think it's going. So we've gotten real time feedback. We've been able to measure trends. And interestingly enough, the response to this has been enormously positive. And it's actually gotten better over time. Interestingly enough, that people are saying, I think one of the top things they're saying is, managers are really listening to their people. They're adjusting, and we're prioritizing flexibility. And I think that also drives real inclusion in the workplace. I'm actually the executive sponsor of our working parent and caregivers employee resource group. We call them BRGs. And, the flexibility that this offers parents, especially, over the last several months, changing school schedules, COVID outbreaks in the classroom, when you have to do a drop off or a pickup, and just being able to be transparent with your manager about what's going on and saying, well, can I on this day maybe work from home? Are there any things happening on this day? And that has just been so well received. And I think it's also something when we speak to talent who are considering opportunities within our organization that really is a factor that we're thinking about them, as whole people. That it's not just the time they spend online or in our offices. It's about what is their life like? What are their priorities and their needs outside of work? And let's consider all of that so that when they take a role here, they are given the space to perform at the highest level. Because we're thinking about their individual needs and not a one size fits all for every employee in the company.
Sure.
So we've gotten tremendous results. We've been, staying close to our board and giving them updates about what's been going on. And they've been very enthusiastic about what we've seen. We learned that we could operate in a very flexible way, online, virtually, in person. And we've seen nothing but success. So we're trusting our people. And it's proving to be, a great success, for our organization.
Cool. Well, it's inspiring. The employees that choose to come back or the leaders, you said it was kind of a hybrid model based off of managers or leaders. What are some of the kind of the drivers for getting team members to come out of their homes where there is more flexibility and maybe more integration between home and work? There's not paying the gas prices to commute in, and there's there's some other benefits. And I think over the last 2 years, when most non-essential workers were in a remote environment, we started to understand what were some of the benefits, what some of the perks of being fully remote. When we're talking to leaders now who kind of want their teams, at least to some extent, to be in person, now the question is, how do we encourage those teammates to come out of their house and back into the office? Have you seen some drivers work more than others, or is it just more of this because my leader wants to, I'm going to come in the 2 days a week that the team is going to be there?
No, that you raised a good point. I think, we've given a lot of thought to this. We've talked about the moments that matter, but for us, you've seen the articles out there about companies trying to drive people back into the office. We never wanted it to be punitive. We never wanted this to be, if you're not here this number of hours a week, that your job's at risk, or that's, a disciplinary action, or we're going to, do a deep dive and assess everybody's, mouse clicks.
Sure.
We never wanted to be that. We wanted people to want to be here. We wanted to create events, opportunities, leadership visibility, to have people really want to be here at certain times, to create leadership development moments, times to ask questions of individuals in the organization, time to learn more about what we're doing. We've done technology events where we're demoing different things that we're trying, out in our stores, and having people come in to experience it live, where you might not be able to do that from at home. So we're creating experiences, moments, and events where we want people to be engaged and want to be here to experience things in person that maybe they wouldn't be able to experience in the same way virtually.
Sure. You talked about equity and inclusion, and I know that can mean different things. But you also talked about some roles that you identified as can be fully remote, and you could tap into talent pools outside of your geographies, although you have many geographies. But even if it's connecting two offices, have you guys had to retrofit or reconfigure, or have you put any effort into trying to make sure that the in-person experience is somehow translated to those that are calling in from a remote environment, so that you've got people, that in-person experience where there's a lot of benefit to that? And I think we're finding more and more so as more companies execute their reentry strategies. How much of an effort have you made to try to provide digital equity and inclusivity to those that are in a remote environment?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? I'm not sure if anybody's cracked the code on, if certain team members are calling in virtually and some are in person. How do you make that experience equitable, give enough attention to those who might be on Teams or Zoom? I've talked this to a number of about this with a number of colleagues in similar roles at other companies. What we've been doing, and I think we're going to continue to learn and adapt and improve solutions, is it's really more of a courteous response that if you have half of your team in person and the other half virtual, then everyone joins virtually. We're acknowledging we haven't cracked the code on how to do that from a technology perspective and have it truly make a difference yet. So we're really just following guidelines that are more courteous to those who might be joining remotely, and not trying to strike that balance. I think there is very new, exciting technology coming out that really replicates that experience and also acknowledges those joining virtually in a different way. We have been exploring VR. We've done a number of demos and sessions within our HR team and with our technology partners to look at how do we leverage the metaverse? How can we connect and create community in that way? So there are a number of things we're exploring and looking into. We always believe in pushing the envelope, doing what's new and different. But this is an area that we're focusing on courtesy for now, and are hopeful that there's new technology and solutions in the future that we can capitalize on.
Well said. All right, so let's talk about well-being, and specifically mental well-being. I think there's some obvious reasons it's a top priority and point of focus for people and business leaders, and that the pandemic itself was an incredible experience of change and trauma in many cases. But like you listed at the beginning of the conversation, there's a lot of other things that are happening today too that are contributing to some of the mental fatigue. I guess I don't know what the best way to put it is, but whether it's burnout or it's depression or anxiety, some things that are not necessarily work related, but maybe get carried into the workplace. I think there's research coming out now that's showing that in a remote environment, a purely remote environment, if you're feeling isolated, that can be a contributor. But talk to me about, from your perspective, kind of overseeing so many team members at your organization, why do you think mental well-being is such a top priority right now at this point in time?
Well, just a few days ago was July 4th. And I think, most of your listeners will be aware of the tragic events that occurred in Highland Park, Illinois. And that's only minutes away from our headquarters location, and actually 10 minutes from my home in the North Shore of Chicago. And I think that is a great example of many things that our team members and employees throughout the world are dealing with right now. Following that event, as people were coming into our offices yesterday and today, they can't park their feelings about that tragedy at the door. And they're bringing that into work. And they're thinking about their families. They're thinking about how their children are experiencing that. And the tragedy of July 4th is just one example of so many things that are on people's minds today. Whether it be, financial concerns given gas prices, whether it be the war in the Ukraine, there are just so many things that are on people's minds today. And as an organization, our vision and, what we've set out to do for our people, which is to care for our team members as whole people, and think about what's beyond the workplace experience. That's why this is a priority for us. We've really prioritized mental health as an organization. We've listened to our people to determine how best to meet their needs in this space. And that's not just, to be clear, for people who come into our office in Deerfield. This is for all of our employees, throughout the globe, in terms of, how they're experiencing the anxieties of working as a pharmacist throughout the pandemic. You can only imagine the stress that all of our people have been experiencing. So recently, we launched our mental health program, which we're very excited about, and it's actually a 3-pronged program that involves a number of different solutions. The first is Life 365, where we offer 5 free counseling sessions to our team members. It's an EAP solution. Wow. So it also involves a lot of other tools and resources that are accessible to our team members. The second piece, which is new, is Journey Live. So this is actually a tool. It's an app that can be accessed by our team members. And they're able to view classes. They're actually both live, and then they're accessible on demand, where they can engage with others who are accessing the class. They can ask questions of expert instructors on a variety of mental health topics, ranging from, potentially issues with sleep deprivation, with stress, with, raising kids, all of the various things you could think of. They have a number and a wide breadth of topics that, can be accessed by our people. And then the third is IndieFlix. So that's kind of the third leg of the stool for our offerings. And think about it as, we call it WBA's own Sundance Channel. It's a number of independent films that focus on mental health topics. And we do a bit of a red carpet premiere. We do panel discussions to introduce each of those films with special guests, and really bringing leaders into those conversations that are very relevant. I mean, one film is about, social media addiction, things that are relevant to our people that they want to learn more about. And I think what's really important about these 3 offerings that we're providing in combination, they're not just for our team members. They also can be accessed and leveraged for their families. So this is something that extends beyond just the individuals who work for us, but we're also considering their whole experience, their families, and others who might need this level of support, who might need these tools. So, we're really proud of it. We got to introduce it very recently, actually during Mental Health Awareness Month. And, when you think about the recent events of this week, that's it's critically important. But with the recent example, we always address it as it's happening, and we think creatively in the moment as well. I mean, we immediately dispatched counselors to stores in the area on July 4th, when right after the event occurred, to provide support. We've given consideration to our support offices. For the next few days, we're going to have counselors available on site for people who are able to, come in, just walk in appointments. We also are going to have a series of workshops about trauma counseling and strategies and tools. Even how do you talk to your children when a tragedy like this occurs? So it's about, addressing things in the moment, providing a really strong, number of tools that can meet needs in different ways for our people. And, just as long as we keep that clear vision that we're really prioritizing, that we're embracing our team members as whole people, and we want them to come to work where they feel like they can be their authentic selves. We do everything through that lens. So we'll continue to push the envelope, to innovate and listen and meet the needs of our people.
Yeah, it seems really comprehensive. It's your culture, it's a priority for your leadership. There's the listening capabilities. You've got the ability for people to contribute through their QR codes and those pulse survey
Yep.
type experiences. You've got a lot of flexibility built in. And then on top of
Right.
that, you're introducing really cool, innovative resources and taking action
Mhm.
when certain events happen that require action.
Right.
So I very comprehensive and admirable. I wonder, as it relates to mental health, is it something that can be measured? And I guess that's a two-part question. Can you accurately measure somebody's mental health? And I know that's a loaded question. I think to what happened on July 4th, and every time something like this happens, you say, "Well, should have seen it coming." There was a lot of there was a lot of warning signs, and I'm not necessarily saying for an individual like that, but as a leader, how do you gauge the mental well-being of your team members? If and is that something that the team members have to say, this is where I'm at? And then also,
Right.
when you talk about these programs and you're saying we're trying new things and we're introducing new resources, are you able to measure the effectiveness? Do you see like a before and
Right.
after impact of these things?
Right. I think, that what you just mentioned is really how we approach tracking and measurement.
Mm.
We want to understand if what we're doing is making a difference for our people. We're prioritizing these investments, but we want to ensure that they are making a difference and they are meeting the needs. So we do that in a variety of ways. We do that through our engagement
Mm.
surveys
Mhm.
that we do on a regular basis. Reading through the comments of individuals. We're obviously tracking, access through, definitely not on the individual level, but more just participation in these tools to make sure, we're doing a good job from a communications perspective of having people understand what's out there for them and making sure that it's taking hold and people find them to be useful tools and devices. And if we're finding that it's not working, we're not we'll pivot, we'll figure out a different way, we'll keep listening and understanding what makes sense. But as I'm sure you're aware, a big part of this is also measuring and tracking inclusion,
Mhm.
because that is a really clear measure of if these strategies are making a difference, because that will tell us about, are our leaders really role modeling a lot of these behaviors? Because one of the things about prioritizing people being able to show up in an authentic way is our leaders need to role model it, which means that they're not showing up and pretending everything's perfect every day and expecting perfection in others, but being real, about how they're experiencing the world around them, what's happening, potentially in their own lives. Because, when you role model authenticity, you implicitly give others permission to do the same, to not feel that they have to put on an act at work, to feel like they can have real conversations with a leader that they trust
Mhm.
and be open about their own lives and their own needs. I know, many things, you want to keep personal, and I'm not saying everybody has to open up their whole life and history to their boss, but the more that you can be real about, how you're feeling and how you're experiencing the world around you, you're going to build trust in a team that is going to feel more comfortable being open about their needs,
Mhm.
and how the environments in which they perform best. So I think, measuring inclusion and continuing to keep a priority on that, and people feeling comfortable in the community that we're building together, it's critical. It's what's, this is a link to business results. Because if people are performing at their best by feeling that they're part of something, by connecting to our purpose, by feeling like they have the flexibility to offer their best performance to our organization, that's what's going to unlock business results.
And you just answered my next question, which was, is employee well-being and mental well-being an HR issue? It doesn't sound like it's an HR. It's a company-wide, a
Yep.
leadership-wide priority that will only be something that is effectively done in the workplace if it's something that all leadership and all different departments make an effort and a priority into, right?
Every leader plays such a critical role in this. You could build, as HR leaders, we always think about, we can build the best programs in the world. We can bring in the most innovative concepts, the things that nobody else is doing. But if our leaders aren't walking the walk, if they're not role modeling the values and the behaviors that we've set out as an organization, it doesn't take hold in the same way. Individuals are not going to experience the culture in the same way. Mm-hmm. And, we want everyone here at WBA to be having a consistent experience, to be embracing our values, and to feel just as comfortable coming to work and being part of this community as the communities they choose themselves outside of the office.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's that the awareness is building, and that's the first step. And now I think, being able to maybe role model off of some organizations that do it really well, I think is very, very helpful on a larger scale. So just a couple quick final questions. These are maybe a little bit more personal, but tell me whether professional or personal, what's something you're looking forward to in the year ahead?
Well, I guess it's both on the professional and the, it's so hard to delink the two.
I know these days, yeah.
It's near impossible, but
you're not moving again, are you?
No, geez, I hope not. I don't think my husband would allow it at this point. He's just about done with relocation.
I bet.
But no, what I would say is, one of the things I learned when I first moved into the retail industry was the importance of, being out with your employees and being out in the stores. And it's, I'll tell you, and my team would tell you, that's what really energizes me about my job. If I sit in my office all day, I'm not doing the organization any good. I love being out in our stores. I love talking to our people. I love, better understanding, how their experiences are, what our customers are saying. I really, it's what gets me going about this job. It's what energizes me. So that's what I look forward to most, and it's, can't just keep going to the neighborhood Walgreens in my community. It means, doing traveling and talking about different experiences that our people have in different parts of the world. And that's what really energizes me about this job. And that's what I really look forward to.
Very cool. You've had such an incredible career up to this point. What's a resource that's been valuable to you professionally? A book, podcast? Sounds like you've got your own podcast, so so maybe that's it. But what's something that you would recommend to others as that's been beneficial to your professional growth?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that along the way I've worked with some really amazing executive coaches, and I am a big reader. I love to read when I can, and I have had coaches in my past introduce me to various books and resources that have really, I can tie development areas back to those moments when I've even read those books. And they've made a big impact on me personally. I consider myself a recovering perfectionist. I grew up in my career in banking and financial services, and just what I described about authenticity in leadership is something I had to personally develop in myself and learn. And I, kind of early in career felt I had to show up with tremendous polish and perfect all the time. There's a book, it's called The Bitch in Your Head, and it's written by Jacqueline Plumez. And I am telling you, that book is one that changed my life.
Really?
In terms of, feeling that I could be real and feeling like I didn't have to beat myself up if I wasn't perfect. And I would recommend it to, anyone who is struggling with the same. It's something I still work on. I feel like I've developed, but it's something I constantly think back to. But number of books. I actually did a post on LinkedIn fairly recently about kind of my reading list of things that really have helped me in my own personal development, and things I'd even recommend when it comes to work transitions. So my book list is usually something I go to as a kind of a resource when asked this question.
Perfect. Well, final question, and you've shared so much great advice, But if you were retiring tomorrow, what's a word of wisdom or a little bit of insight that you'd leave behind for someone you were mentoring?
I would say follow what interests you. You know, as a person who did not expect to be in this line of work, and really did not know what I wanted to do with my career, I've always found that, you know, just following interests, being curious, learning more about things that interest me and that I want to know more about has been very helpful to me. I was not someone who followed a career path or tried to get different roles in different areas to build towards a specific end role. I was just someone who was curious and learning about different things. I remember I did a stint doing process reengineering and SOX control design to learn more about that space, and just raised my hand for a number of things from a career perspective that I wanted to know more about. And I still think back, access that information and those skill sets even today, that I thought at the time, gosh, I'm interested in it, but I don't think this will ever amount to anything, or I won't go down this career path or take this job. But still, it's useful skills and just makes you more well-rounded as a person. So I would just suggest, for anybody thinking career moves or anybody perhaps early in career, and if you don't know what to do, just follow what interests you and see where it leads. I've fared well kind of following that track. And I guess that's what I would leave to others.
It's great advice. And Hallie, this has been an incredible conversation. I can't thank you enough. Congrats to all of your success and everything that you have going on at WBA. Excited to kind of follow your team and your organization as you move into the next 6 months, because I'm sure there will be lots of changes ahead. But thanks for being on Work Inspired.
Great to meet you, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to rate our show. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Work Inspired podcast so that you don't miss any of the incredible guests we have planned for upcoming episodes. We'll continue to find the best and brightest minds in business so that you can learn, grow, and succeed, and so that we can all work inspired. Work Inspired is brought to you by BOS, a leader in commercial working environments and a Hayworth best-in-class dealership. Experience our 360 approach and discover the team, tools, and techniques required to navigate the complexity of your next workspace at BOS.com. If you have ideas, feedback, or would like to be featured on our show, please email podcast@BOS.com. Thank you for listening. This has been a Workspace digital production. If you're interested in launching a podcast at your organization, please email info@workspace.digital for a free consultation.